An outspoken police chief is taking on criminals and county prosecutors with the courage to tell it like it is. How he's fighting crime and getting results. Next. Bloomington Police Chief Booker Hodges is my guest. Thanks for joining me, sir.
Oh, no problem. How you doing?
Doing well. Appreciate you being on. You've been the chief of police in Bloomington, Minnesota's fourth largest city now, for a couple years. You haven't been afraid to ruffle some feathers in that time along the way, but I wanted to start with just a bit of the current state of affairs in Bloomington when it comes to crime and what's happening within your department staffing wise, because I do think it's going to surprise some people, Chief.
Yeah, in Bloomington, obviously, we've seen significant drops in crime, but I always preface that with the caveat: if your house just got broken into or something has happened to you, a police chief coming on here and telling you that crime is down is not, going to satisfy you. But by and large, crime is down here in Bloomington, and I attribute that to our not only to our police officers but to our community, right? And that's one aspect I think people often forget when you talk about crime rates. Yes, police officers, we do have an impact on crime, but ultimately it's the people in this city that are deciding to obey the laws that, we all agreed that we needed as a society, right? Um, but in our police department, we are not only fully staffed, we are overstaffed here and we've been that way. We've been overstaffed for about 6 months, but we've been fully staffed for dang near at least the last 18 months. And being the fourth largest police department in the state, that says something not only for the way we do business, I think, but also it says something for our community here in Bloomington.
Meanwhile, many departments are struggling to recruit and retain police officers. For example, Minneapolis has 40% fewer officers than 4 years ago. And the tragic murder of Officer Jamal Mitchell will likely only make things worse there, but that's not the case where you are. And your department is just 10 miles away and subject to the same Hennepin County politics. So why do your officers want to stay, Chief, and why are others so eager then to also work there?
Well, I think, here in Bloomington, again, it's the community, right? Our elected officials. It doesn't mean everybody agrees with all our elected officials, right? Let's just start there. No community, everybody agrees with all our elected officials, but our elected officials here support their police department, right? So even with Mayor Moriarty being the county attorney, our police officers here know that our politicians support our police department. Now, does that mean blind support? No. I mean, no police department expects blind support, but our politicians here do support our police department, and they know. I mean, I tell every police officer here, and I've said this since I got here day one, every new class that starts, I mean, I give them the same speech. And in my tenure as chief, they have seen that, I mean what I say. So I tell my cops, first and foremost, if you're within policy and procedure, I got your back 100%, even if it's ugly, because every time something happens that's ugly, and those of us with these stars don't defend our cops or tell people the truth, we not only do our cops a disservice, we do the citizens a disservice by letting them know, by having this perception out here that every time we interact with people, it's going to look good, and it's not. I say if it's borderline, I will never kick them under the bus publicly, but behind closed doors, we're going to have that tough talk, and they're not going to have that talk with me. But if it's across the line, I'm not going to have their back. And it's not just me, it's every police officer that works here that wears this badge and this patch, because this community loves our police department and they're not going to do anything to mess that up. So I think that's clear, right? And you can run into any Bloomington cop, any of our CSOs, our reserves, everybody gets the same message that I just gave you here. And I think that since I've been chief, I've demonstrated that on countless occasions since I've been here.
In talking about recruiting, you've been candid about how your department hires police officers and how you hire for character, not skin color. Why is that important?
So, at the end of the day, people want police officers who have character and values, right? In Bloomington, we were very fortunate enough to come together as a community and come up with a set of shared values. And ultimately, it came down to the overarching value being respect, right? So we hire people based on character, and character does not mean perfection, right? I mean, people think oftentimes you hear character, you got to be perfect. No, I like people who make mistakes, right? Because it shows you, how they handle those mistakes. But hiring people based on character is what we do here. We hire for character, train for competence, right? Because you can't train character, right? And again, character does not mean perfection, right? But we need people here whose core value is respect, because that's all. From me on down, we have to be respectful, right? And respect is given; it's not earned. So people, when they interview for us, one of the questions is how you define respect. And people who say, well, I respect people who respect me, we get rid of their application right there, because as police officers, we don't have that luxury to respect people who only respect us. We don't have that luxury to do that.
Along with taking on criminals, it seems you've had to take on county attorneys as well, as you mentioned, but you've publicly criticized Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty and some of the decisions her office has made. She recently dropped murder charges against Minnesota State Trooper Ryan Londegren, but she blamed law enforcement and law enforcement supporters, had a lot to say about skin color and identity politics. What was your reaction, Chief, to her announcement?
So that press conference she did on Monday, June 3rd, was filled with a bunch of statements. It's just too many to go over for me.
Every day in our community, people live with the trauma of continued gun violence. Once again, we mourn for those lost and injured by horrific acts of gun violence.
County Attorney Mary Moriarty, to me, is highly intelligent, right? But oftentimes when people are highly intelligent, God doesn't give us all the same gifts in one area. Sometimes we are lacking something in another spot. And the mere fact for me, the timing of this, Officer Mitchell was not even buried yet. And to play on the emotions of people who may have a lived experience, either perceived through other people or living vicariously through other people with law enforcement, to play on that when this officer is not even in the ground was very disappointing to me. And not only that, to continue this narrative that all police officers are subscribers to white supremacy is absolutely ridiculous. I don't subscribe to white supremacy. The officers that work here don't subscribe to white supremacy. And I don't know what we're going to do here in law enforcement in Hennepin County to reestablish a relationship with the Hennepin County Attorney. And I will say this, the career prosecutors that work there are the very best at what they do, right? Those career folks are phenomenal. They do a good job of, prosecuting people who need to be prosecuted and dismissing charges for people who don't need to be prosecuted. They do a good job of that. But the County Attorney, Mary Moriarty, those blanket statements, the damage, I can't overstate the damage that has been done between the county attorney and law enforcement. And it has nothing to do with us philosophically disagreeing with her. It has to do with the fact that you just paint everybody in this profession with a broad brush. That's just not true. And I'll close on this. It makes us less safe as a community by doing that. Because what happens is some people will hear the county attorney say that the cops are white supremacists. They bully her. Really? Bully her? Okay. But anyway, so what happens? Then people don't want to call law enforcement when they need to. And in essence, that is going to continue to make the communities less safe. And who is that really going to affect? The very communities that she went out here and tried to rile up with this press conference on Monday, June 3rd. The damage, I don't know if it's going to be repaired between law enforcement and the county attorney.
It all too often seems leaders in Minnesota and the rest of America, for that matter, seem confused about walking the walk, talking the talk. You're speaking from experience and courageous leadership. I think, as seen in your videos, I might add, they're very informative and highly entertaining at the same time. But why are you speaking out and communicating this way with the public when so many other so-called leaders seem to be doing the exact opposite?
44 years old, should have known better. And guess how many DWIs he has? he has more convictions for DWI than I have fingers on one hand. He's got 5 convictions. This would be the 6th. So he decided to drive drunk in Bloomington, and we locked him up. Hopefully number 6 is the charm for him.
So here's what it comes down for me. And I'm going to go back to the county attorney, Mary Moriarty. And I'm singling her out because she's the most recent one to do this. We didn't get to where we got with this perceived or actual break with law enforcement and community overnight. Systematically, people have stood on TV and called us white supremacists, said we go out here and just kill people for no reason. We do all these bad things. And for years, no one in these positions who have these stars said anything. So when you're quiet, people assume that what that person is saying is true. So for me, I want to tell the truth about this profession. Are we perfect? No, absolutely not. We are never going to be perfect. And I tell my cops all the time, it is an unrealistic expectation for us to be perfect. I'm not going to be perfect. But when we sit here and say nothing and allow this false narrative to go on, I can't allow that. And the reason I can't allow that is I got 2 kids, right? I got 2 boys. And the demographic shift in the country is getting more and more diverse, right? And if we don't have this, not only law enforcement, but paramedic, firefighter, those other professions be viewed as viable by people of color, we're going to continue to have these staffing issues. So for me, it's like, this is about the future. And I love law enforcement. I mean, I still think it's the most noble profession on the face of the earth. And I feel for the cops, right? Because no one really speaks for the police officers. And at the end of the day, and I said this, I say it all the time, my title is Chief of Police. The last term in that, police, is more important than the first. So yeah, that's why I do what I do.
Along with your videos, you're also speaking out in public, face-to-face with the people in your community. Full disclosure, I had the pleasure of hearing you speak at a recent Backing the Blue Line event, met your lovely wife there as well. But you were just as courageous and spoke about the tragedies that have been playing out again and again, the common thread of disrespect for law enforcement. You've spoken to this a bit, Chief, already. What will it take to fix all of this beyond telling the truth?
I think the truth, well, here's what it comes down to. We got to get back to respecting each other, right? I mean, George Floyd happened, regardless of what people think. The actions, completely disrespectful, right? Then you got the riots, again, completely disrespectful. There was civil unrest, but there was a lot of riot and looting going on too, right? Completely disrespectful. We've allowed mobs, people to form mobs and go protest and destroy stuff. And we have to get back to respect, right? We have to get back to respecting each other. We can have a conversation with each other and not agree, but be respectful. And I tell you how poignant this is. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak at Eagan Police Department. Does a youth academy. They had about 30 kids in there. And I asked them to, say one person that you admire, right? And no one, not a single person, and no one kid said a politician, but it was a old politician. And that's a change from when I was a teenager. We all looked up to politicians, and I flat out asked, I said, why did no one say a politician? I mean, does everybody just hate politicians, or what's the deal? And to a kid, they said, I didn't want to say a politician because I didn't want to get into a fight with people in this room because we might disagree on that person. That's our kids. And if our kids feel that way, they got to be quiet. They can't say, who they like or support without worrying about fighting. We've gotten into a point in society where we don't respect nothing almost in some instances. And to me, in order to get back to where we need to get back to, we have to be respectful. And absent that, we're going to continue this downward spiral. Now, I am hopeful. I think most of us in our personal interactions are respectful with one another, but we have to get back to respect, or we're going to continue to see a lot of these instances, what we're seeing now.
Bloomington Police Chief Booker Hodges, again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
That'll do it for this episode of Liz Collin Reports. We'll see you next time.